Hello. Today we're going to do something a bit different from what we did last time too. And it's going to keep changing like this until there's a regular pattern for all these streams. But what we're going to be doing today is looking at the elements here. I'm going to call this series Random Elements. And what I'm going to do is pick an element at random, and we're going to look at what it does, what we can talk about it, some of the practical uses, ways to identify it, and anything else that we can find that's a little bit interesting. Now, firstly, I will close my eyes and pretend I'm not looking at one specific element, and I'm going to go back and forth here to try and pick something. What's this? Interesting. Okay, I don't know how much we're going to get out of this one. But here we have Einsteinium. Guess who it's named after? Let's see, Einsteinium. Again, this is a synthetic element. Elements in this part of the table you can't find, mainly because their nucleus is very unstable. The protons and the neutrons are held together by the nuclear force, which doesn't work when you begin adding more and more protons. It begins to get very weak. And I explain this all in my article on my website, which I will now show. But the general idea is that protons and neutrons attract each other based on their quarks. And the quarks have a nuclear force, which is attractive to each other. But it's actually a residual force. The main force comes in the, the interactions between the quarks, which then build up to interactions between different protons and neutrons. However, in the case of the larger elements, it takes more and more protons and neutrons to do this. Because what tends to happen is that this force is only so strong, and adding more protons puts more pressure from electromagnetism, which makes it very unstable to have them all next to each other. So you have to put more neutrons in, and more neutrons in. And it begins to get a little bit tricky. But this is the general idea for how they're sticking together as quarks. And you can read this article on my website right here. See? Protons don't like extra positivity. No thank you. And the strong force keeps protons and neutrons together. See how happy they are? This explains how it works. But let's look at Einsteinium here. It's in the actinide series, the 7th, transuranic element. Okay, obviously it was named to honor Albert Einstein. They found it in the debris of a hydrogen bomb. Can you imagine cleaning up after a hydrogen bomb? It is the most common isotope. Oh, 253 is the most common isotope. You can produce it from californium decaying in high-power nuclear reactors. Okay, you're not going to find this. It's very, very difficult. It's soft, silvery, and paramagnetic. And of course, very radioactive. Since the nucleus is so unstable, what is happening is it's going to split. But when you split a nucleus, you create radiation. You can also create large amounts of energy, which is, ironically, how you get a nuclear bomb. Because it's so unstable, they split. And you do this billions, trillions, I don't know how many times. With all the different uranium nuclei, they will unleash all that energy that you can see. It is highly dangerous to health in... Okay, do not ingest Einsteinium. This was found in 1952. They figured it out. This is a lot of physics that I cannot do, and I will not attempt to do. Let's see. Oh, they actually have it in a vial. That's amazing. Okay, so you can hold it, unlike other ones. This is a very soft metal. What else can we find about this? It is volatile. There is self-damage because it is so strong, it will destroy the crystal lattice and radiate massive amounts of energy. Is there anything you can do with this? It's very good with nuclear fission, of course. It breaks itself apart. Not quite certain what you would do with this, though. You can synthesize this. Let's see. They produced an isotope by radiating californium with deuterium. And what did they make this? So they shot a proton with an extra neutron from a hydrogen at californium, and it made this. And then it didn't make this. Okay, so this was just explaining you can make it. You can make a metal from oxides, halides. Okay. I'm glad there is an application part. Yeah, basically you can't even use it outside of any scientific research. Oh, here we go. They like to use this isotope, 254, to produce ultra-heavy elements because it has a large mass and a long half-life. There you go, 270 days. 270 days until radiation. And you can get significant amounts in micrograms. And they used it to make, what is this? Untitled. I don't know how they make these names, but this is ridiculous. Oh, here we go. This is interesting. They tried to bombard it with calcium at the Superhelix Linear Accelerator in Berkeley, California, and it didn't work. Not effective. Most of the applications or the reasons you're making these are very straightforward. You're just seeing if you can make larger elements to see what they might do or what you could do with them. But with most of these larger ones, you're just doing this to do it. You're not going to get anything out of it. They don't exist long enough. They break apart. You can't bring them together into a significant amount. It's very unrealistic. But this is what they were trying to create. It's either unanium or ununanium. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Otherwise known as ecafrancium. Ooh, ecafrancium. Francium is one of the what was it? This is the alkali, the alkali metals, and they do not like water. When you expose them to water, they violently explode. Okay, they're trying to pick a name, but it doesn't exist. It's hypothetical. In order for theoretically, you could just keep making elements, and you could kind of guess at some of the properties. One issue, though, is to put it on the periodic table of elements, you would have to actually find it and prove that it exists. So this is the realm of hypothetical elements. It doesn't exist yet. I'm trying to find it, though. But I can save that for the future. Is there anything else we can find from this? I'm not sure to even learn much, but let's try to go back up here. So they first found it. It was found by Albert Giorso. Okay. And his co-workers at Berkeley. They were working with these different national laboratories. It was the fallout from Ivy Mike, which is a nuclear test. Ooh, in the Enwatok Atoll. Whenever you see those videos of nuclear bombs being set off in the ocean, this is what they're talking about. Similar to this, it's how you would test all these different nuclear weapons. You have to test them somewhere. And unless you want to keep doing it in the desert, you can do it here in the ocean. I don't know the effect it has. It's probably not good, but they tested it in the ocean. Oh, this is the first successful test of a hydrogen bomb. Okay. Which means they would have used plutonium, not uranium. That's a bit of a difference. Okay, and at this time they thought that absorbing more neutrons wasn't realistically possible, except that it did, because plutonium has to absorb the extra neutrons in order to be made from uranium. Uranium would absorb it. Okay, uranium absorbs it, and then it becomes plutonium. Let's see, papers. They analyzed filter papers which had been flown through the explosion cloud on airplanes. So that's your job as a researcher. You're going to take paper and throw it into a nuclear bomb, and then you can test it for things that may or may not be on it. I don't see much else that I could even look up here. You can learn a lot about theoretically what it's like. It can help you if you are a physicist, if you're curious and pouring through some of the more theoretical aspects here. But for an actual usage in real life, I doubt you could use it. Oh, what is this? Oclo is a region near Franceville in the Haut-Ogooué part of Gabon, where they have natural nuclear fission reactors. Okay, I am now interested in this, but as it pertains to Einsteinium, I'll leave it there. If I missed anything, feel free to berate me. I'm sure somebody can. I'd like to find more interesting things in the future, so I'd probably say I'll lay off some of the more theoretical ones and stick to the ones that are known, mainly because I'm not sure what they have, but that'll be it for Einsteinium. Let's check something here. Hold on a sec. Interesting. Oh. Now we're going to move on and begin the next part. Welcome to the Gulf of Aqaba, next to the Red Sea, lying down next to the Sinai Peninsula in Saudi Arabia, moving upwards to two other countries, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and the, oh no, I believe it's the State of Israel. It's not the Republic. I'm pretty sure it's the State of Israel. Here I'm going to be talking about some of the different resort towns, beautiful places you can find in this part of the world, along with several other interesting things as well. And I've included them just for different reasons, but the main reason is that they lie mostly on the Gulf of Aqaba, right here in the center. And as you're going to see, all of these things are being put right next to each other, all these different towns. And they're all going to be near each other in the future, which means more of the stories and everything you hear about them, it's part of an interconnected, localized community of unique places. And first we will start with Jordan here. Now, as we can see, Jordan looks pretty big. Bigger than Israel, definitely. But Saudi Arabia is a little bit bigger than Jordan, just a little bit. However, what we're interested here is not with the majority of Jordan. If you can see most of the east, the south, it's a ton of desert. There's a little strip here, Amman is one of the main parts, that runs down the entire west with the border with Israel. That part is what we're going to be interested in, but not the top, the very end, the bottom. Amman is the capital. It's a very big, ancient city, a lot of things to look at, but not for today. Today we're looking way down here at this city, Aqaba. And the reason we're doing this is that the city itself is the only port city by the sea, by the coast, that Jordan has. It has no other way to link to seas or oceans unless it negotiates with somebody. Thus, this city and its port are extremely important to the economy of the entire country. Now, the way they received it was that they had to swap some land. They gave up, effectively, a bunch of desert to Saudi Arabia, and in exchange for that desert, they received a close little strip of land, which includes Aqaba and a lot of the coastal area, and some mountains and some other stuff too, that enabled them to create this type of town in the south. Without it, they would just be stuck in the desert, some nice desert areas, but the desert nonetheless. And Aqaba has its own unique history. It's not as if it's a random place nobody's ever been to. They found it a couple of years ago. It has both an economic importance in the modern day, but also a historical importance. And ancient cities, historically, had been in this region. If you can see here on the border, this is the official border between Israel and Jordan in the south. Eilat is over here, and Aqaba is over here, except they both claim to be descended from the more ancient city that used to be here. And there were actually several, so it's kind of hard to pick which one. But there were ancient cities in this area. They had historically profited from the trade that went through the entire region. And of course, they're on the sea, or the Gulf here, and it's an excellent opportunity for sailors to come in and out, and for travelers by caravan to make stops in this specific area. Now, the city had its own unique history before the Romans came. It was part of the, I believe it was called Nabatean Kingdom, but it had its own unique gods, its own culture. When the Romans came, they conquered it, and they Christianized it into a Christian area. From there, when the Muslims began invading, taking over areas, they invaded this area as well, and they turned it into an Islamic city. So it became Muslim during the initial surge as they moved north and outward. If you move even further along into the Ottoman period, they had to stretch a very large railway all the way up. I'm going to show this here. There. All the way up from Damascus in Syria, right down into the Hijaz, this coastal place in Saudi Arabia, down to Medina. And this was called the Hijaz Railroad. The reason I mentioned this is because Aqaba, way over here, was one of the little links into the railroad. But going south, as you'll notice, there is not much sea or ocean. You can go to the Red Sea, but there's not much there. But this little city right over here provided a port which you could use to bring in goods and traffic and move people around and connect directly to the railroad. So, by just connecting it a few dozen kilometers over, it suddenly becomes much more important than a little town in the mountains somewhere. Additionally, during World War I, at the Battle of Aqaba, Lawrence of Arabia, famously, was helping to escort tribes north. They conquered the city from the Ottomans. They used it as a royal naval base to transport supplies in as well. So it has a pretty long history, albeit with certain lulls into it as well. Now, the city has a number of different things that we can talk about. There we go. This is one picture of the city. There's plenty more I have, but you can see the flag here. We have the Jordanian flag. You can see parts of the city, plenty of palm trees, the very large mountains in the background as well. We go down here. So it has the country's main port. That's obvious. You can see it in the south, little cut region down here. But it also has a flourishing tourism sector, which I'm going to get into. You'll see plenty of this. And they're planning out large industrial zones as well to allow more processing of petroleum in the area. You can have more plants to construct things. You can bring in more engineers. A large number of different facilities can be created in the area, which further gives jobs to people for more citizens to come to the south, settle in here, and then expand the city as well. If you're going to have plenty of tourists coming, you also need a large number of employees to take care of them, and they have to live in the city too. But it's good to diversify the economy like this. Through all the diversification, the city can have a lot of different things going on, which will create a very diverse economy in this region, and it'll attract a lot of people in the future. If it can continue to grow, and it does have the space, not really south or this direction, but it can always go north like this. There's not much up here. It could become a very large city in Jordan. You could see 500,000 people in the future when more things are constructed and plans are fully realized. But I said it was a tourist site, but not just a tourist site. No. It's one of the best tourist sites. This is Aqaba, but you have to go north to see part of what I mean by one of the best ones. If you go far enough north, let's turn to the right here. We go across the mountains, and we're going to see Petra over here, which was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom that I mentioned earlier. It's a very famous ruins, and everyone loves visiting this. They look amazing just to see them, and they're all carved out of the stone from the mountains all along this region. You're really not going to get much more than this as a desert tourist experience. It's one place I'm going to hope to go to in the future. I would like to see this. I'd like to explore the area. The photography chances are amazing. You can see an ancient culture and how they had built things in the desert, far away from where you would normally want to live. And for tourists, it's amazing because you can link your beach vacation in Aqaba with trips up to Petra. And additionally, we're still not finished. There's more to actually talk about. Way down here is the Wadi Rum, which is a valley in the south, largely a desert valley where a lot of the Bedouin live, where it's a very famous tourist place. A lot of people go out, they will wander the desert during the day, see the amazing sights. You can see it's very rocky, it's all mountainous. So there's a lot of unique things you can see. Here we have a canyon, you can walk through the canyons. Lawrence of Arabia supposedly lived here. That, of course, is going to be an attraction, specifically for British people. But it's just the same appeal as you would find in the western United States, for example, in all the national parks, such as Utah, such as Bryce Canyon. And they have no shortage of canyons here. You can go on and on and on with this. Another canyon. This one's a bridge. Look, another bridge. These are rock bridges. There's plenty of places to explore in here. There's a chicken rock? There's not a chicken rock. Is that really a chicken, Rob? Okay, if they think it's a chicken, sure. And you can see there's a protected area camp here. You can camp in this area as well. But some of the tourists, the tourism that I've seen is that the Bedouins will set up very large outdoor tents, which effectively are makeshift buildings because they set up beds and couches with lots of cushions and pillows. There's campfires, they're cooking food, they have tables, huge tents over your head. They're very large, but the appeal is you can sleep in the desert at night, and you can see the stars above you all shining, because again, people do not live here. These are not where major cities are, but the natural beauty is a main appeal, and it remains that way to this day, and so close to Aqaba, where you can take trips over very easily to the east and up north to Petra as well, which is why this has also had a name as the Triangle of Tourism in Jordan. It's an amazing area for lots of tourists to come in and see all the natural wonders in this land. Now getting back to the actual city, it's famous because right down over here, there's a large number of hotels, luxury resorts, high-rise apartments, shopping centers, marinas, restaurants, more. I could say more, really. But a number of specific projects are going to develop the city in a way which will be very appealing for anybody who wants to be a tourist. For example, down here on the border with Israel, you can see the Isla oasis. And this one is a man-made lagoon with resorts, canals, and it even has an 18-hole golf course. I forget what the golf course was. It's around here somewhere, but I can't remember what it was. From the plans, it's meant to look like this. You can see a large lagoon. There's lots of little boats you can travel in and out of it. It's very comfortable, very cozy. And when I was looking at the pictures, it has they created white buildings, walkways, palm trees, but blue around the doors and the windows and part of the walls. It reminded me of like a Muslim Santorini, the island from Greece. Looks pretty similar in that way. And you can already see from here, you have apartments, you have bangs, restaurants, there's hero burgers and wings. Part of this really is touristy. But the entire area is going to be beautiful if you want to stay there. It's a lagoon by the desert and the sea. You have a lot of variety for what you want to do. Now over here to the east a little bit, down in this section, is the Marseille. Now this is a project which is still being developed. It's going to combine business facilities, tourist resorts, a marina, and shopping outlets, which again will continue benefiting the local economy, but they want to diversify it as much as possible. So they want plenty of development to take place. This is one of the concepts they have. We can see a small little bay here. Plenty of ships are docked. There's plenty of large buildings around it. They're intending to build the very large high-rises, up to, including, skyscrapers, which do block out the view from the actual city quite a bit. But it will most likely continue to expand into the future. And over to the west here, a lot of this is still being developed, but in this section, they're trying to build, they have a large project called Saraya Aqaba, which is another large man-made lagoon, another one. And they're going to have resorts and villas, lots of hotels. You can see this lagoon is being constructed here, although I don't know where the next one will be. So it would seem that they're still building things, they're still working on some things. If you look in this area, you can't see much, which is most likely because they're preparing it to be built. They have a water park over here, for example. Down here is a beach club, and these are hotels. The Al-Manara is a very good candidate. It's very luxurious, very stylish. These prices, I know are in Turkish, but they are very high even for that. I'll give you an example of why. Here is the gate, and they're welcoming you. And here is the hotel from a distance. It's meant to be very fantastic and beautiful. Lights, palm trees, desert sky, mountains. It's all very fantastic. In the center of the city, down here, next to some of the parks, section. Here's where you can find the ancient Islamic city of Isla. It's right in the center portion here. It's where the ancient city used to stand, and you can see the ruins from thousands of years ago. At the same time, and this was hilarious when I zoomed in, they have the Arab Revolt flagpole. So they are very proud of the fact they are a country and they threw off the Ottomans, which is why there is a flagpole in an area specifically just for this. A bit further to the south here, you can find, where is it? There we go. This is the port of Aqaba. And in fact, this had to be completely moved because they needed to develop the center of the city, which meant they had to put this way into the south. It was a multi-billion-dollar project. It was a lot of planning. It took a lot of work to make this. But again, it is the only port. They need to invest in it for it to be a good plan. I can also mention this up here. We go back to the Isla Oasis. Ooh. You can go north. Ah, there we go. What is a golf residence? I'm going to use something called a golf residence. Yeah, up here we have a golf club. I can see they're still planning things up here, so this most likely has not been finished. They have to fill in this as well. These projects are going to take time. They're not going to be very fast. This is a bit interesting, I thought. So up here, it's not a park. This is the bird observatory, where I would assume one would observe the birds in the area. But it has good reviews, so they must be able to see some stuff. And of course, you can see plenty of little birds here. I thought, for looking at this the first time, that these would have been salt flats. But I guess they're areas for the birds to come to, or maybe they are, but they're just, as I said over here, wetland habitats. So I'm not entirely certain, but it seems to be a good nature area for people to go to. Now, let's turn our attention to the other side here, moving south. You can see they have the mountains which creep in to the shoreline. You can't really extend straight down. But once we hop over, they have the Aqaba Aquarium down here. Lots of beautiful sea life. The entire region, the Gulf of Aqaba and the Red Sea, famous for coral reefs, beautiful fish, diving, snorkeling, sailors, surfing, all that kind of stuff. It repeats over and over again. So there is definitely no shortage of anything. Oh, that's not bad. And in addition, you see, oh my, get rid of all that. No. Oh my god, okay. We still have more beaches. There's an underwater military dive site. There's some fun wreckages that you can see occasionally too. And plenty of reefs. This is a snorkeling site. You can see a reef up here. There's another reef down here. They're great places to explore if you like that. And you can find another example of the lagoons that they have been creating. Over here you have the Tala Bay Resort. Oh, it's doing that. And once again, it's a large lagoon. See the water filled in straight to the hotel. But it creates a very interesting type of landscape that you can see. The water comes straight in. You can swim in it. You can go straight into the water with a boat. You can relax by the pool, by the beach side. It's very exclusive property that people would like on a tourist vacation. It looks very luxurious, very relaxing. And that's largely the appeal of the entire city. We'll also go up here, just so you can actually see the actual city. All of this is the tourist aspects of it. But you don't see the city over here, which is very structurally planned out. See little squares, very carefully made. Something, highlight something. And we can see there's a hospital, lots of different malls, a little park, lots of neighborhoods. This is where the actual city would be. But if it will be like this in 20 or 30 years, who can say? Dubai used to look very different, but again, Dubai began as a major construction project, not as a small city to turn into a large city. So a lot of this might be gotten rid of in the next few years. Now, I do want to mention one other thing, which was a shame. In this region somewhere, they were going to build something called the Red Sea Astrarium. The reason I say it's a shame, the reason it's a shame is that this was a planned entertainment resort. There would be lots of shows and films, everything, but the key part is that it would have been a Star Trek themed park, because the King of Jordan, Abdullah II, is a fan of Star Trek. He's been in a Star Trek episode on television. You can see down here, he was in the actual TV show. So for this to have been made in Jordan would have been amazing. But it's not going to happen because it was canceled, and it's not going through, unfortunately. But it is so depressing because it would have been fantastic to go there. It would have been a great experience. And now Disney's going to get it. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just assuming Disney's going to get it. What a shame. But we're going to keep moving on here. And you can see Aqaba in the background. You can see the city on the coastline with the port, the huge mountains over here as well. They're always red sandstone mountains. But the city we're going to next is Eilat, and this is in Israel. So moving across to the Israeli side of the Gulf of Aqaba, this is the city of Eilat. It's a resort city with a large port. It's bustling with tourists, just as many tourist attractions as was over in Aqaba. And the main reason is that this is the desert for Jordan, but it's also the desert for Israel. Israel has a giant desert in the south called the Negev Desert. A lot of people don't want to live there. It's just too difficult. Living in a desert is very tricky to do. So people tend to come here because you're right by the sea. You can see everything. It's very lush and luxurious. And they have their own unique places to go look at as well. Here you can see Coral Beach, and this is a nature preserve and a park used for research and diving. This is the second aspect. They have something called the Coral World Underwater Observatory, which is a massive aquarium, and again, they do research here. And you can see one easy picture of all the fish. You can see people in the tunnel down here as well. That's a bit later. But these are further down south. They're not, it's not in the main part of the city. And part of the reason for this is that you are trying to preserve it, which means you can only build up so much around it before it's kind of part of the city. So you had to separate it a little bit like this. But for tourists, this is great beachfront property. It's blue, crystal clear waters. You have coral reefs. You have marine life. You have palm trees. You have sunny weather. It's fantastic. Look at the manta ray. Look at the reef systems. For tourists, it's an easy sell to go here. I should also mention up here, I don't know, here it is. There's a place called Dolphin Reef Beach. The key part being that dolphins come up to this area. They have a sea pen they can keep some in as well, and you're allowed to interact with the dolphins in this section. Let's see. There are cute dolphins here. And of course, down here with all these different places, you can see plenty of beaches on the area as well. There's tons of beaches all over this place. It's perfect for tourist activity. Everybody who wants to go to the beach, ironically very hot because of the desert climate, but if we compare Jordan, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the people who live in the interior, this is an oasis compared to the interior of the deserts. Now over here closer to the Jordanian border, we have two large lagoons. I didn't get too much information about them. The names they have are New Marina, New Lagoon, and Laguna. But I assume they're just man-made lagoons for the same purpose. You can build up a lot of the area with lots of shops, hotels, more resorts, more fancy restaurants, more fancy stuff to buy, and you can build it up as a large tourist area. But one of the more interesting things they have here, which is hilarious, if you go up here, you can see up on this section, they have something called Ice Mall, which is what you got a peek at here. And this is an enormous indoor mall with an ice rink. It's hilarious because you can skate on ice in the desert, which should be impossible, but it is possible with modern technology. Further north of this area as well, they developed it a little bit differently. Up here you'll see lots of salt flats in these two areas. They also have the Eilat Ornithological Park for your ornithological purposes. Look at the owl. But it's a beautiful nature park too. And I was aware of this. They have a lake here. Oh, Lake Anita. Well, how very nice. An entire natural park. Across the road to the west here is a botanical garden. Once again, perfect for growing certain types of plants, but you need a lot of water to keep things alive in this part of the world. It is still much of a desert climate. It's difficult to live here. I think this is a Fred Flintstone car. And we can see a lot of the environment from this section. You can see the salt flats, the green areas, the cities, all the mountains. It's a very beautiful place to see. Expensive, but beautiful nonetheless. And right next to the botanical garden up here is Kibbutz Island. And it's a different farming community next to the tourist area. They also have a vineyard here as well. But this doesn't offer the desert experience. Not like Jordan with the Wadi Rum and Petra. To do that, there's a canyon here, but the famous one is further up, way up here, past the airport. You have to go to the Timna Park. And the Timna Park is famous. It's a very large desert valley. It has sandstone mountains, it has copper mine tunnels, and it has remains of ancient cultures as well. And you can see the natural beauty in this section. You would take a day trip from the city up to the park, and you can go exploring around the entire section. We have photos of that too here. Yes, you can see natural rock formations here. You can see the entire valley, which you can walk through. Oh, that's too much. And it contrasts with a more oasis-like atmosphere at the south very nicely. I don't believe people, you could probably camp here, but I wouldn't live in this area. Again, very harsh desert climate. But I like seeing this section right here. So in the valley, there is also what they said here is a hidden lake. You can also see the lake from this section too. So if you want to go swimming in the desert, you want to have fun in the desert lake, it's right there, ready for you. As you can see, people are not too shy to do other things here. And that's all for Eilat, and we'll leave it behind. You can say goodbye to the tip, the Gulf of Aqaba. But there's more than just that. We've just seen 2 cities. If you go down the entire Egyptian coastline, it forms something called the Red Sea Riviera, which is an elongated section of mountains, coastal spots, beaches, nature preserves, coral reefs, surfing locations, everything that you need. It's a perfect area to create such a string of tourist resorts. This is Taba, across from the Israeli border, and it has some resorts as well, but it's not as famous as the other ones. You have to move further down the east coastline of the Sinai Peninsula to see much more. If you go further south here, and south, more beaches, more resorts, more villages, more nature preserves, hotels, more towns over here. You have to just keep going down and further down and further down. You finally hit the hub. And this place is just famous because there's lots of divers in this area for the different coral reefs off the coastline along here. It's an excellent place to go diving, and you can see some different places. Here, you have more hotels, you have beaches. However, this is not even close to the famous part. The most famous one in Egypt, which I've always heard of as well. You have to go to the very bottom of the Sinai Peninsula, over here to the Straits of Tiran, and this is Sharm el Sheikh. This is well known as the major resort and beach city of Egypt. It's a very beautiful place. Hotels and luxury resorts are everywhere, and I mean everywhere. This is the main Egyptian hangout beach place. And you can see it has very much a desert aesthetic, just like Aqaba, just like Eilat. Once again, it's not meant to be a desert city, though. It was meant to be a vacation place. And there's so much to see in the area as well. Not to mention the fact that it's often host to international conferences. They've hosted different peace negotiations over different wars and conflicts and regional disputes and political squabbling in this specific city. And this place has luxury resorts. It has an 18-hole golf course. It's filled with surfers, divers, swimmers, pleasure cruisers. It's a very beautiful area. You can keep seeing all the different things. This is more planned areas as well. They're expanding into bays and oases and more hotels, kind of copying each other, to be honest, just a little bit. But you can see the beautiful vacation places they have. It's a gorgeous area to go to. Filled with palm trees. So much greenery here in the desert, too. And this is my favorite part when I saw it. This mosque, it fits in with the desert motifs very well. Its color is correct. It fits in with the buildings. But when I first looked at it, I thought it looked like a sandcastle. Because it looks so much like a sandcastle. You build the little square parts. You build the domes to put on top. You can put little towers next to it. But it fits in so well the colors that you would expect for kids to make sandcastles with. Now, moving over here a little bit, if you come to the north, you're going to see the Nak Nature Reserve. Oh, there. It's also called the Nak Protected Area, and this has lots of different coral reefs and mangroves, and it's mainly designed to protect it against any of the threats, because certain people could develop the area, destroy the local ecosystems. And it's not what the government wants, and they're trying to protect this area ecologically. In order to do that, you can't touch it as much as you can the other places. And if you look down here, compared to Aqaba and Eilat, this isn't even close. The size of this city is very large. Every time. No, I'm hiding something. And it's filled here with hotels. A ton of people are living here. There's a major golf course in this section you can see. There's so many different places to stay, which is why it's widely known as a large beach town. With all these different places, you can just pick where you want to go to. We come further to the south here. You find the Ras Mohammed Nature Preserve. And again, this one has protected natural areas. It has extensive coral reefs. It has a diversity of marine life, acacia trees and palm trees. Very beautiful, very natural, and very protected as well. Do not damage the pretty fish. Do not damage the pretty fish. Look at the nature. Go ooh, go ah, take pictures, pick up your trash. Do not leave trash here. And just appreciate how beautiful the landscape is. Very famous of snorkelers. There's so many fish to see. And again, there's an enchanted lake here. And also, another bird observatory. There's plenty to pick from. A lot of the marine life also interact with the birds because the birds are trying to eat all the marine life. But it all integrates very nicely for a wholesome, complete tourist experience. Now across from this, on the Straits of Tiran, if you go to the east, we're hitting Saudi Arabia here. And they don't have the same vacation tourist places that the other places have. Maybe you heard that Saudi Arabia is it's a little bit strict. I can't imagine many beach parties in Saudi Arabia. I really don't see this. The only real difference is that you're going to see this area in the news, maybe 10 years from now, but hopefully in the news fairly recently. See, this is at the mouth of the Aqaba, across the Straits of Tiran, and further south you can see the Red Sea. And it's at a very crucial junction. It's a very good point to control things. And this is where Saudi Arabia wants to build its futuristic city of tomorrow, fancy lights and everything, the city called NEOM. And this is where it wants it to go. Now they're going to build it utilizing smart city technologies, and they want it to be a tourist destination as well. So they're combining, again, the different aspects of being by the natural areas. You can see the mountains, you can see the animals, the plants that can live there, going camel rides. You can stay by the beaches, the restaurants, the hotels, the shopping malls, all of this stuff. And it's meant to look very futuristic. It does, well, it's supposed to be very futuristic. The name NEOM is a combination of Greek, which is neo, so new in Greek, and the M on the end is for mustaqbal. I'll give you a minute to think about that. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Mustaqbal means future in Arabic. And thus, if you put them together, the meaning of NEOM is meant to be new future. Its price tag is a paltry sum of $500 billion. It's supposed to extend 460 kilometers across the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, and it will creep into the desert interior as well, as you can see here. It's meant to utilize the entire coastline here and here, It's going to be extending into the strait, across the mountains and the desert, and a wide area. It's very futuristic, obviously, and thus what they're doing is they want to run the entire city on renewable energy. One way they've done this is they have a contract already with a company to create a hydrogen plant in the city. So they'll be generating fossil fuel-free fuel. Say it 5 times fast. Fossil-free fuel-free fuel. I can't even do it. Fossil fuel-free fuel. Fossil fuel-free fuel. Now, they've already started construction on part of the city. I can show that over here too. This part is called the line because it's a line, as you can see. It's very linear. Look at that line. Oh. The line is supposed to be 170 kilometers. It's a long stretch. And you can see here it's cutting straight to the center of the area. It's designed not to use cars, and thus it's going to transport people across the entire city. I believe they send the news that most places you live in the city, you should be within a 5-minute walking distance of everything you need. All the shops you want to go to, different parks, entertainment areas, mosques, your family's homes, transportation, everything should be 5 minutes away. And it should be 20 minutes at the most to any place you want to go to, or I believe what they said was 20 minutes across the entire city, which would mean an extremely fast train ride. They're also working on the airport they're going to have here, and they're building homes to house people. You can see some of the construction already, although there's not much, to be honest. It's over by Sharm el Sheikh. And as a fun little trivia, Sharm means peace in Arabic. It's also why Sharm el Sheikh is called Sharm. And they have this part. I guess it's just, it's something to show. It's a sunset. There's not much else you can see here, honestly. I assume these are buildings they're building, but it could just be anything. Here they have the NEOM Bay Airport. The flights are just out of Riyadh for right now. Mostly construction flights, but it'll be a little while before anything serious gets built here. Which is why I said look in the near future. Maybe 10 years. It's not going to be tomorrow. Here you can see the full territory they've dedicated to it. A lot of the islands as well. I'm very curious if what they're going to do is the island approach Dubai has, where they build more islands, or if they're going to make more lagoons inside NEOM to create more of that water space inside the desert. It's not as if they should be afraid of losing land. There's nothing they're going to build here anyway. But they could have a bunch of different approaches. I'd assume they'd want to island hop as well, all the different islands available right here off the coast. I'm not sure. These islands specifically were a whole headache of legal wrangling between Egypt and Saudi Arabia until I believe the Saudis were granted them. So there's plenty of places they could hop to. A lot of interesting stuff they could see. Now, the other part, which is not talked about as much, there are people living here. There are tribal people who do live in the area, and there are concerns that they're being evicted, sometimes violently, off of the area. And people think that perhaps they can help them to change things, but Saudi Arabia is a very powerful, absolute monarchy. And with the king in charge, it's not very likely that any attempt to help these people will be successful in the future. If they want to build a giant city here, they're going to build a giant city here. The people here are not rich. They don't have the power to resist it. Internationally, no one's that interested. It's not as if they've been interested before. So you're probably going to see a city here. If it's successful, who knows? There's been stuff like this in the past where they announce a city, doesn't work out. But there's a lot of money behind Saudi Arabia and what they want to do here. So it's just as likely it will happen. And also I wanted to bring up this part here. They had a lot of different sustainable energy solutions, because what they want to do with the city is to make it very green, very environmentally friendly, very healthy to the planet. It's part of their vision in Saudi Arabia to move beyond petroleum products. And this is one of the, I believe this is the team that won a project. And their project was down here. It's the Submerged Floating Tunnel Bridge. It's the idea you can build a tunnel underwater, but it's not a tunnel on the ground, it floats. And this way they want to limit air pollution, but they want to help the marine life too. Remember, it's environmentally conscious. That's the point of this place. And let's see, second place was the Magna Storage Park, which is a pumping system to store water and compensate for energy fluctuation, which may result from cloud cover and breaks in the wind. The NEOM Assist was third, and they had a solution for different healthcare challenges. For example, providing assistance to people with special needs, using advanced healthcare, and developing research. And there were a number of other people who competed in the contest as well. But they're trying to build next generational technology. They're trying to move beyond what they've already done. They're trying to innovate, come up with new ideas, think above the box in some ways. And hopefully they can succeed in their goals. Coming up next, we're going to react to a little article I have here. Oh, there we go. But okay, a quick break here, and I'll come back, and we're going to read this very interesting article. Okay. Now, as you can read here, this is an article about mitochondria, structure, function, and clinical relevance. However, it's not. You already read a little bit more. You can see the article is a gag article. The idea behind this was that this person, and their name here is Neuroskeptic, they're a blogger, an anonymous one, and they took this article, wrote it up, it's completely ridiculous, But what it's supposed to do is it shows that journals which accept scientific articles don't always do this under the noblest of intentions. In this case, there are 4 different journals. They're not all listed here. I believe this is one of them. They claim to be scientific journals, but they accepted this work, looked at it, reviewed it, probably not, published it online, and had to later issue a retraction because it is so obviously a joke that missing it is ridiculous and beyond excuse. There's no reason this should have ever been allowed to be published. But it did get published. It has a 90% like ratio. There's 14,000 views and it's 3 pages. And it is hilarious. I'm trying not to read it as much as possible so I can get a proper reaction. Because my discipline is molecular biology and biochemistry. So to me this will be much funnier than someone who just comes in and doesn't know what's happening. But some of the stuff I'm very excited to read. And it says here, it's a Star Wars-based spoof scientific paper, accepted and published by a number of predatory journals. Highlight the predatory part. But that's not what was published. This is what was published below. You're going to see some of the issues as we get into it. I don't think I like this. Yeah, this will be nice and big for everyone to see. This is the Austin Journal of Pharmacology and Therapeutics. You can see the Austin Publishing Group. This is a real thing, and they published this. Now, let's read some of the basic stuff. It's a research article, Mitochondria, Structure, Function, and Clinical Relevance. So all we're talking here about is the mitochondria, which is an organelle, an organ of a cell, which generates a lot of ATP, which is called power, to make it easy for people to understand. You use ATP as energy in your body. Thus, it's very important in your cell. It has to function properly. They're describing how it looks, its function, and then clinical relevance, anybody who might have diseases, any way to help it in the future. There's also mitochondrial DNA. There are mitochondrial DNA diseases which result from that, unfortunately. But they go on to describe it a little bit. In the abstract here, the mitochondrion, that's the singular form, mitochondria is plural, is a double membrane-bound organelle found in the cells of all eukaryotes and is responsible for most of the cell supply of adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP. As the central powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria, also referred to as midichlorians. Right away, no. Midichlorians are the made-up microscopic organisms which live inside people and give them force powers from Star Wars. Right away, it's a red flag. These serve a vital function. They have been implicated in numerous human diseases, which they have been, that's true, including midichlorian disorders, again, that's not true, heart disease and circulatory failure, and autism. In this paper, the structure and function of the midichlorian is reviewed with a view to understanding how the pathophysiology of midichlorian disorders can point the way towards translational treatments. The keywords are cell biology, mtDNA, translational novel therapeutics, and midichlorian disorders. So it's a cute little joke that popped up in the very beginning of the abstract, but they didn't get into describing it yet. That's the key part. And notice, by the way, who did this. It's the Department of Medical Cell Biology at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. The corresponding author is Lucas McGeorge. Okay, another cute joke they threw in here. The Department of Medical Cell Biology at the University of Saskatchewan, 105 Administration Place. It could be a place, but that's just ridiculous. In Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I cannot believe these names exist. This is in 2017. And here is where we're going to go into some of the interesting stuff. The midichlorian, or midichlorians, is 2 membrane-bearing organelle found in cells. That's pretty straightforward. He puts in some information about mitochondria to make this article more realistic, but occasionally puts in other stuff. The midichlorian itself has a genome that shows substantial force capability. It shows force powers, and there's citations to that too. They're about 0.75 to 3 micrometers across. They change in shape and size, which is true. They're not very large, but it's something called double membraned. They have a membrane on the outside, like a wall, and a membrane on the inside. Or maybe I should make this easier, like a skin, and an internal skin. And the way they're shaped is in back and forth swirls and undulations. They move up and down, lots of little curves and grooves. By doing this, you can expand the surface area inside the organelle, and you can generate more power in this way. Let's see. Now, beyond supplying cellular energy, they perform functions such as force sensitivity, cell differentiation, signaling, maintaining control of growth, cell growth, and the cell cycle, of course. And midichlorial biogenesis is regulated in conjunction with these cellular processes, the dysfunction of which can result in different sorters, failures. They put force failure in here. Oh my god. And let's start seeing what's in here. They're talking about erythrocytes and hepatocytes, the different blood cells. It seems pretty fine, no problems. Talking about the inner and outer membranes, the matrix, which exists. The matrix is the space inside of the cell. It's where all the goopy water is. Nothing's there. Things just float in between. And the cristae, the curves and grooves is moving up and down like little hands and little feet. And let's keep going here. So first, a search, identify midichlorians. They're looking at human midichlorian disease. They keep saying midichlorian too, which, come on. If you're a research paper, you can't forget this. That makes no sense. And they publish the results down here. The results are fascinating, by the way. And it's kind of weird because this is the results talking about the structure. There's not even much. The methods, you should explain carefully your methodology. It doesn't even make sense in this section. And the results being something anybody could look up, it doesn't make much sense either. And it's all very standard. He basically repeats himself here as well. There's an outer midichlorian membrane, and an inner membrane space, and an inner midichlorial membrane. Okay, that's fine. There's a matrix here. They're talking more about the membranes, which are similar. The cell membrane and the mitochondria cell membrane are very similar to each other, but have differences. It has many integral membrane proteins called phosphosporins. This is hilarious. Oh my, they have different enzymes, they have uptake functions. All this is fine. Elongation of fatty acids, epinephrine oxidation, tryptophan degradation. That's all fine. It sounds okay. I wouldn't know the specifics here. I've heard about a few of these. Oxidative phosphorylation, for example. That is part of the process of splitting oxygen to create ATP, which is ATP synthesis. That is all fine. Regulate passages of metabolites. Protein import, midichlorial fusion and fission. All these are normal things you'd expect in a mitochondria, not a midichlorian. There's no fewer than these. 151 different polypeptides. That's fine. About 1/5 of all the protein midichlorian is found in this locale. It's rich in a most curious phospholipid, cardiolipin, which is 4 fatty acids, not 2. And here we go. And if the inclusion of force and midichlorian didn't tip you off, some of these things will start to tip you off. Cardiolipin, which was originally found in Ewok cardiac tissue in 1942, is characteristic of the plasma membranes of midichlorians and bacteria. Its function may be to ensure the inner membrane is impermeable. The inner membrane lacks fluorescence, rendering it non-permeable to any molecules, in contrast to the permeable outer membrane. I don't know what lax fluorescence are. I don't know if those are real. And you can see citations down here below. They publish more of their information. And the key functions here are force sensitivity again. No, that's not what they do. Anytime you see force sensitivity, that is not part of the functions. Here we go again. The production is the citric acid cycle, also referred to as the Kailorin cycle, after its discoverer. So I believe they mean Kylo Ren instead of Kylo Ren. It's a nice little nod of new Star Wars. Its primary purpose is the genesis of ATP, and this is why there are so many force proteins. You need force proteins for those force powers. You got more of one type, you can do pushes, more of the other type, you do the talking, the choking, all that kind of stuff. Force usage births ATP from glucose with a yield of up to 13 times greater than free mutation. Array tip exits to the inner membrane via specialized protein and transverses the membrane via porins. How interesting. Pyruvate, which is a product of glycolysis, again, there's spelling mistakes. Is ported. That's wrong. You should catch that. So it's imported through the membrane of the matrix. It can be used to produce NADH, acetyl-CoA, CO2, alternately carboxylated by pyruvate carboxylase to generate oxaloacetate. Now, this is pretty normal. There's no problems here. Notice we're getting a little bit down. The oxaloacetate levels in the citric acid cycle and is therefore an anikin-pleuritic reaction. Oh my god. How would you miss this? This is perfect. And here we're talking about the cycle of breaking down sugars in food into other molecules, which is used to generate the energy. This is fine. What's around it is goofy, though. See? The gluconeogenic highway, which turns lactate and deanimated alanine into glucose, triggered by high levels of glucagon and or epinephrine. Here, pioneering oxaloacetate to the Midichlorian has no net anikin-pleuritic effect. As malate, another intermediate exits the Midichlorian to be converted into oxaloacetate in the cytosol, which is eventually morphed to glucose. This can be likened to the opposite of glycolysis. And they're including these cute little things in here. At some point, there's going to be a major drop because they just copy something from Wikipedia and post it inside here. Now let's see, can we find anything else before we get to the major one? It's in all living cells, yes. Of course it would be. Look at this. Without the midichlorians, life couldn't exist, and we'd have no knowledge of the force. No knowledge of that. That should not be anywhere in a scientific or academic art. They continually speak to us, telling us the will of the force. They emerge clinically as myopathy, endocrinopathy, diabetes, systematic disorders. Oh my god. When you learn to quiet your mind, you will hear them speaking to you. And again, the mtDNA mutations can cause diseases such as Kylo Ren syndrome, Mella syndrome, and Lightsaber's hereditary optic neuropathy. Well, a lightsaber would cause some optic neuropathy if it was used the right way. These diseases are usually handed down by force-sensitive women to her children. Now, this is an inside joke because, oh my god, when you have kids, children do not inherit midichlorians, mitochondria, from their father. That's a very, very rare case. They inherit it from their mother. And if the mother has any mitochondrial DNA defects or abnormalities or diseases, it can mean that she may not be able to have children, or her children may have serious problems, because this is a serious problem. And this is where you get the idea of a three-parent baby. That the mother gives the egg, the DNA, the father gives his DNA, and then you have a different person, a different woman, I assume, give her mitochondria to replace the other mitochondria, and all three together can make a child. Now, whether or not that works is a matter of some debate, but this is what they are talking about when they pass it to her children. Because the zygose midichlorians and hence its mTNA are derived from the maternal ovum. Diseases similar to Kylo-Ren syndrome seem to be the result of large-scale mtDNA rearrangements. Point mutations in mtDNA are responsible for other diseases such as myoclonic epilepsy with ragged red fibers, Jar Jar syndrome, and again, lightsabers, hereditary, optic neuropathy. So ridiculous, oh my god. How was this accepted? Now here's more nuclear genetic mutations, Yoda's ataxia, and Wookiee's disease. Come on! Oh my god, how would you accept this? And here's more diseases. I don't know. I don't know if Barth syndrome is something. And there's also Binks disease. This stuff could be real. I just have no idea. Ah, here we go. This is where it's starting to get more goofy, and some things are being pulled directly off of a speech that we're going to get to. So, midichlorians mediated oxidative stress cause cardiomyopathy and type 2 diabetes, or diabetics. What they're referring to here is that sometimes you have oxidative stress inside of mitochondria. You have rogue reactive oxygen species. And this could cause cardiomyopathy, which I believe is destroying heart cells in certain diabetics. Here talking about more fatty acids being delivered to the heart in cardiomyocytes, which are the muscle cells in hearts. The oxidation of fatty acids in these cells increases. And here is the turn point where you should know this. This is not a scientific article. I'm going to clear my throat here. I'm going to get this all in one read. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It is not a story the Jedi would tell you. It was a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a Dark Lord. Darth Plagueis was a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise. He could use the Force to influence the Midichlorians to create life. This process increases the number of reducing equivalents available to the midichlorial electron transport change, and thus generates reactive oxygen species. That was him sneaking in the Darth Sidious story from the third Star Wars episode into a scientific journal. Oh my god. And it's still going, by the way. He just peppers it with fancier language to make it seem like you don't see it. After reactive oxygen species, ROS, which are oxygens which have had, I think their electrons removed. So they'll be able to suck up more electrons, but they react too wildly, so it can create diseases. He had such knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared from dying. The dark side of the Force's pathway to many abilities, some consider to be unnatural. ROS uncouples the midichlorians by increasing uncoupling proteins, increasing the leakage of proteins to the adenine nucleotide translocate. He became so powerful, the only thing he was afraid of was losing this power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew, and his apprentice killed him in his sleep. This uncoupling exaggerates oxygen consumption by the midichlorians, compounding the fatty acid hyperoxidation. Ironic. He could save others from death, yet not himself. A vicious cycle of uncoupling arises, even as oxygen consumption increases. ATP synthesis cannot keep pace because the midichlorians are uncoupled. With less ATP available, a force energy deficit arises. Cardiac efficiency is reduced, and contractile functions is impaired. Oh, tragic. There needs to be more of this. That's too funny not to have. It's amazing you could have done that. And there's the cell's force power station, of course. And mitochondria are sometimes called powerhouses of the cell, but they're not force powerhouses. Oh, even better. If high-energy dark side electrons leak. Oh my god, there's high mutation rates. Of course there are. Aging and oxidative high blood pressure proposed to be linked processes. This was a theory of aging developed later. A number of changes can occur to Death Stars during the aging process. This is just goofy now. It doesn't make any sense. Decreased enzyme throughput of the respiratory chain proteins has been spied in tissue from older Jedi. What? Yet even so, mutated mtDNA can only be found in about 1 in every 500 very old cells. Large deletions in the midichlorial genome may, however, be the explanation for neuronal death via oxidative stress and Parkinson's disease. And that's supposed to be the end of this. However, there's more if you really go through this. So I'm going to assume some of these people are lots of references and names that you might recognize. I'm not exactly certain. But if you go through some of this stuff, it begins to get a little weird. So again, he specifically made these references. There's Midichlorians, more than just a powerhouse. We have Darwinian bioscience. Again, Midichlorians. Not sure, can't. Here we go. Okay, I'm recognizing some of these people. H.M. McBride. He's got to be somebody. M.S. Wasiak? Huh. I'm not sure who some of them are. Neil Campbell. This is a science fiction author. Oh my God. I'm assuming a lot of these names are references I'm not going to get. The midichlorial organelle, of course. Weimerslage? I'm not sure. Let's see. Quantification of midichlorial morphology in neurites of dopaminergic neurons using magic. You're using magic to look at supposedly mitochondria which aren't in neurons. This is so pathetic. How did this get in? I don't even know what rogating is. I have no idea. Why sinister buttocks are creeping into students' essays. The majority of the text in the current paper was rogated, I don't know, from Wikipedia. Mitochondrial apologies to the original authors of that page. There's so many good references in here. Oh my God, which other one's going to get here? Atomic bioscience, okay, cube. Giovinoni, I'm not sure what that is. Mitochondrial dysfunction, ischemia, reperfusion, and cardiac disorder. Gardner, don't recognize these people. Midichlorian psychotherapy in the future. For psychiatry. What does a psychiatry magazine have to do with how mitochondrial work? That makes no sense. Oh my, there's more references. I saw more stuff over here. More direct references now. Let's see, the origin of midichlorians, genomics perspective. Philosophical transactions of the Galactic Imperial Society. O.W. Kenobi, otherwise known as Obi-Wan. L. Skywalker. I wonder who L. Skywalker could be. Profiling of the human heart mitochondrial genome. Okay, nice. Throw in some of the Chinese names, too. I wonder if these people are actual... I have no idea who they could be. There's a lot of research from China, so if you throw them in, it looks like I have lots of international research, too. Throw in some European names. It looks very authentic. Okay, most of this is fine except for the midichlorial part, I should say. Let's see. Yeah, nothing much different there. I swear I'm going to miss something and it's going to annoy me. I'm going to be so annoyed by it. I throw in a German study. Let's see. Seebende. Über die Spermatogenes Arc Anal Physio from 1890. Oh my God, it's from 1898. Why would you include that? Here we go. S. Palpatine. Powerhouse of the cell. I wonder if these are German jokes. I'd miss the German jokes. H. Solo. F. Martin. Hydronism. This part of that's fine. The origins of sex. 3 billion years of genetic recombination. They slipped it in. Novel Coruscant. The capital city of the Galactic Republic. Oh my. Dun, 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 and most of this is fine. Some of the names are interesting. Major groups. Oh my god. There's another cute little thing at the end. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping for a good ending. Oh my god, this is so ridiculous. I just say, congratulations on making this. I cannot believe 4 different papers accepted it. That's ridiculous. But this entire thing is hilarious. If you understand any bit of cell biology, so many things here make no sense. It's just overly goofy. You just pepper in smart-sounding things with actual definitions, and you take away some words or put in complete nonsense. It's amazing. Thank you, Neuroskeptic, for making this. It has made my life better as a result. And thank you for a credit to science and proving that some people really don't pay attention. Okay. Now we're going to move into a different part. So, in the future, I'm hoping to do more things with history and science and news, research like this. And I want to put it on the channel, show off some of the most interesting things, include lots of little extra stuff too. So I'm going to go through a bunch of news sites right now and just show a little bit about how I'm picking them. And I'll do more of it in the future, definitely. But I probably won't show the news sites every single time. How about news? Let's see. My news. There we go. Yes, lots of weird stuff. Let's see here. Where do we go? Boom. It'll shock the computer. Oh. Okay, never mind. I don't have enough time, so I'll have to keep it there for today. I hope you enjoyed all the different parts. It's definitely fun to go through some of this stuff, see some amazing and beautiful places, and see some amazingly and ridiculous things. But we'll cut it off for today.